Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good Tvach Shavua Tov. We are at the end of Perek Beis Mishna Aleph, Chapter 2, Mishnah 1. All right, so again, this is the last part of the Mishnah that we'll finish up. And it reads like this. Kainam she'eni yashen. Literally translated, we'll translate it just, word for word. Konam, which is a substitute word for carbon, that I will not sleep. So this is what the person basically said. Person, instead of saying the word carbon, he said konam, but he basically said carbon that I'm not going to sleep. So what do you think that means? That means that he is trying to forbid sleep on himself. Because he's saying sleeping should be like a carbon to me. That's what he's saying. He's trying to forbid sleeping on himself by linking it to a carbon, right? We've been speaking about how a person can make a neder on something, like on an object, to himself or to another person, by saying, carbon, I will not eat that which is yours. By that, he's saying, what's yours is like a carbon to me, and I can't eat it. And in this case, he said, kainam, a carbon, or meaning like a carbon, sheini yashin, that I'm not going to sleep. That means sleep should be to me like a carbon. Okay, sheini medaber. Well, let's say you said, kainam, sheini medaber. Kainam, that I'm not going to speak. Or sheini mahalach. Or he says, kainam, that I'm not going to walk. These are the cases here that we're talking about. Okay, so he's trying to forbid upon himself to either sleep, speak, or walk by saying that these actions should be considered like a carbon to him. Or, ha'imar le'ishtai, person says to his wife, a carbon that I'm not going to be intimate with you. He's trying to forbid cohabiting with his wife by making it like a carbon upon himself. So now the question is, do these declarations make him forbidden on the things that he seemingly is trying to make himself forbidden on? So the Mishnah says like this: this person is subject to the prohibition of he shall not desecrate his word. When the Torah says, I bring it down here in the notes, ish kiyidar neder la'Hashem, person who makes a neder to Hashem, lo yachal devaray, he shall not desecrate his word. There's a prohibition. If you make a vow, make a neder, and you break it, you transgress a prohibition of the Torah. The Mishnah here seems to be saying that in any of these cases, when you make any of these declarations, you are now going to be subject to the prohibition of do not desecrate your word. Sounds like these are kosher, these are effective Nedarim. The Bartanur explains that these are effect, even though the Mishnah is citing the verse in the Torah, it does not mean that it's a Torah prohibition. According to Torah law, these Nedarim do not take effect. And that's because, as we have mentioned before, a neder takes effect on an object, on something of substance. But on not talking and not walking and not speaking, which have no substance to them, they are actions that have no substance to them, therefore a neder will not take effect on them, according to Torah law. However, the sages decided in these cases to actually make it be prohibited. It's not a Torah prohibition, it's a rabbinic prohibition. So although the Mishnah used the verse of the Torah, it means to say the prohibition of the Torah, the rabbis applied it to these cases. Why did they apply it? I'm not sure. I didn't see anybody explain why. In the previous part of the Mishnah, when the person basically said to his wife, you're like my mother, which was again another way of saying that it's forbidden, but again, it was really, according to law, ineffective to do. The sages said, no, it's going to take effect because of the fact that we don't want you to be so lax and take lightly when you make vows. Because even though this one was not effective, if you take vows lightly, well, one day you're going to make a vow that may work, and we don't want that to happen. That was in that case. Now, again, we have a case here also where he says, another example where he linked it to a carbon not being not to cohabit with his wife, but there were other examples also. Do they all fall under the same reasoning? All about, it doesn't say. Doesn't say. The case of where he says, I'm not going to cohabit, I've konam that I'm not going to cohabit with you. All right, that's similar to the case before. But the other cases of not sleeping, not speaking, not walking, why I haven't seen a reason as to why they decided to make that midrabanan effective vow. Now, the Mishnah then concludes. What we have been discussing is a neder, right? A neder is when you express, you're trying to create a prohibition through a neder. So according to Torah law, it has to be it takes effect on an object, and according to rabbinic law, we see it doesn't have to, at least in these cases. Now, but what if a person says shavua she'eni yashen? He doesn't invoke a neder, but rather he invokes a shvua, an oath. And we said previously, a shvua, an oath, is something you take upon yourself. So if a person says shvua she'eni yashen, I make a shvua that I'm not going to sleep. She'eni medaber, shvua, meaning I make an oath that I'm not going to speak. She'eni mahalach, a person says shvua that I'm not going to walk. Will those be effective according to Torah law? The answer is usher. They are forbidden. They are forbidden according to Torah law. Because a shavua, an oath, is not on an object. It's on you. It's something you take upon yourself. So you can take upon yourself not to sleep, and not to speak, and not to walk. Now, the Bartanura points out that there is something that you have to qualify the case of where you say that you're not going to sleep. And I'll read it to you from the bottom. However, if a person swears not to sleep for 3 consecutive days and nights or more, the shvua is void because it's impossible to fulfill. Right? Things that are impossible to fulfill, that is called that's a shvua made in vain. That they call that the person incurs malchus for swearing falsely, meaning he swore, I'm not going to sleep. Of course you're going to sleep. So it's a false vow. It's a vow in vain, and that's a Torah prohibition that even carries lashes for it. So in this case, where the Mishnah says usher, he says, I'm not going to sleep for a day. That's possible. So that shvua takes effect. The guy says, I'm not going to talk. Is there a limit to that one? I don't know. Can you go around? Is it possible to go around not talking for a week? Yeah. Maybe. Why not? It doesn't say. Is it possible to say? Is it possible to say I'm not going to walk? For a month.
It could be.
It could be. So at the end of the day, so I guess the qualification that you can't make a unlimited shvua about an action seems to apply to sleeping, not necessarily to other things. Probably applies to eating also. If a person says, I'm never going to eat.
Possible.
Then he's going to die. No. Okay. But at the end of the day, they make this qualification. They mention it by sleeping, not by the other ones. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Because